BXB. It's in the game!
Kingdom Come Deliverance has been a long time coming. Originally, the developer, Warhorse, was put together in 2011, and then a crowdfunding campaign in 2014 saw the team at Warhorse gather together quite a large amount of money to start full-on production and get outside investment for this particular title. And because of that long, protracted development, the hype around this game has grown increasingly so over the years, until many people are incredibly excited to see what could be produced for this D&D, or D&D without the dragons as they called it, take on a historically set, not exactly fantasy, open world first person shooter style role-playing game. When I say shooter, there's a little bit of shooting, mainly with arrows, and mainly poorly implemented, but we'll get to that later. So here this game has arisen, and its beautiful vistas are the first thing you notice. The environment set in this 14th century Bohemia is beautiful, which has now become the Czech Republic, which is where this game has been made. We have this great sense of historical setting and pathos, and that's also helped with a framing device at the start of the game using what can be described as cutscenes in sort of illuminated manuscript style. A lot of this game has a very strong sense of authenticity. Now, that's great. That's fantastic, because it's without a doubt what the developer tried to do, bring together a sense of authenticity. And they have succeeded. The game feels, for the most part, like the world of this time period, set historically, accurately amongst the sort of political machinations of the various groups and kingdoms and fiefdoms and principalities of that part of Central Europe. However, the problem you have with an historically set game that is striving for accuracy at every turn point is that it's not necessarily fun. Because they've decided to pull out, and not ever include, I should say, really, any fantasy element. So there's no dragons, there's no magic, there's no warlocks or crazy mystical powers or anything of the tropes that you'd expect. Even less so than, say, a Game of Thrones, which obviously, while very, very sort of historically inspired, has a lot of fantasy elements. It becomes incredibly dry. And that means that your characters, while nicely modelled and quite well voice acted throughout, come across as a bunch of rather dull kind of individuals. Henry, the main character of the game, the person you play as, you don't get to customize a character or build a character. You are Henry, and this is very much his story. Progresses through the game and does develop. He does develop his skills and his personality. He goes through trials and tribulations which help shape him as a man and make you sort of become that character throughout this story. However, the characters he meets, the NPCs he meets, are often rather cookie cutter. I don't know. I never lived in this particular time period. It's quite possible that boredom and sort of the dull existence of, you tend the fields, you grow old, you die at 40, that sort of thing, I'm sure that's realistic. But it's not particularly the kind of experience I want from a video game. And as I always state when I'm doing these reviews, these are my opinions. And I mentioned before that the setting of Kingdom Come Deliverance is well executed. The strongest point is definitely the sort of large sweeping vistas, the forests, the lakes, the castles. All of that feels wonderfully realistic and lived in. However, the character models aren't that great, and the immersion really suffers from a cornucopia of bugs. Now, I delayed my review here on the Xbox One because I wanted to wait for the full proper release of the Day 1 patch. Now, there's been a lot of confusion around this patch. Has it come out? Hasn't it come out? Is it really there, or isn't it? I honestly am not sure at this point whether or not this game has been patched. I've gone and played this game at various points, pre-release, post-release, and now up to almost a week after release, and it still has a crap ton of bugs. Now, it's an open world game. You expect a certain level of jank, the term we've come to sort of be synonymous with the Skyrims of the world. And, you know, there is a level of you expect things to interact a bit strangely sometimes. Maybe there'll be some pop-in errors. Maybe characters won't populate properly, that kind of thing. However, when you're getting bugs that 100% prevent completion of quests or, say, being able to actually achieve the goals that are presented in front of you, well, that's more of a problem. It's not fun. You have to think of creative workarounds and stuff like that, and that's not right. That's just one of the types of bugs. So you've got so many issues with things like archery and horse riding. You've got issues with the questing, pathfinding. You've got issues with NPCs not spawning. You've got issues with graphical textures. I played this game on the 1S and the 1X, and let's be honest, even on the X, it doesn't look great or perform brilliantly. Now, there is one element I really liked of Kingdom Come Deliverance, and that is the melee combat. I love the sort of level of complexity, and yet it is quite accessible. So it's sort of directional based. You pick a position to plant your feet in, you then pick the direction you swing your sword, your axe, your polearm, whatever like that from, and then depending on the types of armor you're wearing, you will deflect incoming attacks. There's a lot of complexity in Kingdom Come Deliverance. Actually, everything is kind of complex in Kingdom Come Deliverance. And the way the systems are explained is poor. Really, really poor. There's no proper tutorialization for the most part. Instead, you just get screens and screens and screens of text that come up when you first, for example, the first time you encounter lockpicking, or stealth, or combat, or persuasion, or anything. There are so many systems at play. For example, hunger plays a part in Kingdom Come Deliverance, as does fatigue, as does how well your clothes are presented, for crying out loud. If you look muddy or covered in blood, that will affect how different NPCs interact with you. There is a level of immersion here that I can see certain types of players really enjoying. However, for me, I just found it wanting me to push me away from the experience. I was bouncing off from the experience because of all of these interconnected systems that made things purposefully obfuscated and complex. It was just unnecessary and not fun. Video games should be fun, and this isn't really trying to be that sort of first-person perspective video game that we maybe got from Skyrim. This is trying to be a sim, more in the same sort of vein as Farming Simulator or Euro Truck Simulator. You know, let's be fair, those games are also massively popular in Europe, so you can kind of see where that desire to simulate a medieval experience may have come from. It just sort of forgot that bit that makes these kind of experiences fun, which is a real shame. The story is pretty dull and cookie cutter in the end. Characterization can be all over the place, and while I quite liked the humanistic voice acting we got, sometimes characterization of women can be decidedly questionable. And then there's also the problem of, like, where's the racial diversity on display here in Kingdom Come Deliverance? There just isn't any. The bad guys, they happen to be the most racially diverse, and of course they're all the subhuman evil types, the cumin, I believe, that you just have to exterminate, that basically have no motivation and other than the fact that they're evil and obsessed with wealth and raping and pillaging, of which there is quite a lot in Kingdom Come Deliverance. And I can't really talk about this game in a good conscience without talking about perhaps some of the motivations of some of the people who work on this game. And I am honestly talking about one particular individual, and that is Daniel Vavara, the sort of lead creative designer behind Kingdom Come Deliverance, who has been a strong defender and proponent for the Gamergate movement ever since it blew up a few years ago. And if you've ever listened to any of the podcasts or any of the articles we've posted on BXB Games over the years, me and the team are obviously strongly against the Gamergate movement, to put it lightly. And it makes it difficult sometimes to critically review a product which is so closely, in a way, tied to such a negative movement. And I know he's just one man. He is, however, one man in a very influential position at Warhorse. So you have to wonder how much of his influence has seeped through into this game. And of course, he'd argue that there weren't really female knights at this point in history, and there weren't really a lot of sort of racially diverse people around in this part of Europe at this point in history. And he actually says on many occasions that there's sort of a desire to strive for historical accuracy has gone above and beyond every other sort of issue that's been sort of concerned for Warhorse when it has come to developing Kingdom Come Deliverance. And I can understand that, and I can see that. However, he's not a great guy. And it makes me a little bit reluctant on another level to actually recommend Kingdom Come Deliverance because of that. But besides that, this game is boring. This game is buggy. This game is not AAA. This game needed more time and more testing. And I'm never a fan of these games that come out as full finished releases that require continuous patching and support. You know, patches that are like these huge 20 gig patches, which just makes me think that this isn't ready. It's undercooked. But even when it's finished, I can't see myself having a huge amount of fun playing Kingdom Come Deliverance. As an experiment, as a concept, I give Warhorse props. They're definitely shooting for their moon. The ambition is there. The execution is not. So because of all of that, and honestly, regardless of the Gamergate issue, I'm only going to give Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 out of 5 stars.
BXB. It's in the game.